We still got some games left, people. Stock up, stock down. What is going on, everybody? Thanks for stopping in on a Wednesday. So, Matt, I think it's us, man, because since we started this thing, we're in like a 4-game losing streak, dude.
Yeah, you know what? Richie from Jets Media, I did a stream with him earlier today, and he pointed out that this might all be my fault because I usually, you've mentioned this on the show already, usually I'm pretty measured and down the middle, but I was very confident going into that Broncos game, and I declared that the Jets would blow out the Broncos, and they have not won since. So this is on me. Hand up. I take full responsibility for this. I'm sorry I did it again.
Yeah, and me and Matt were talking before this stream, and guys, we decided to, like, the comments will go wherever you guys want, but we didn't want to do an existential state of the franchise. We know it is what it is. They're mathematically alive. We're gonna watch all the games, even people who say they're not. If you're watching us, you're gonna watch the freaking games. So anyone who's in here, you're gonna watch the games. You're gonna root for the team. So we gotta just suck it up and hope that it turns around. But for right now, we're going to do our stock up, stock down from the loss to Pittsburgh, starting with stock up. Matt, who is your first stock up person from the game?
Yeah, so I want to give some credit to Morgan Moses here.
Yeah.
He no pressures in his 2 games back from injury, which is good. But also, I thought he did a good job with TJ Watt. And I know that he got help as well, too. Like the Jets were very wise to do that. We talked about, I think, on last week how the Jets did that against Myles Garrett a couple years ago. They had someone else chipping over there on him. And they did some of that with Morgan Moses as well. But I thought he looked good in this game. And honestly, like, spoiler, I think most of the offensive line outside of left tackle looked pretty good in this game. So I wanted to shout out Morgan, who seems to have stabilized the right side of the offensive line the last couple weeks, but in particular this game too.
Yeah, he was solid, and credit Todd Downing or whoever decision it was to not allow what happened with Micah Parsons last year, where they just let him go one-on-one. They put an extra body on TJ Watt almost every play, and he really didn't do much. He had the one pass batted down in Rodgers' face. Yeah, I actually think the offensive line, like, we don't really have a bad offensive line. I think we have a schematically broken run game, and we have a bad left tackle is what else I would say, because the interior has been pretty good in pass pro all year. I think John Simpson's been a good signing, and that game, the pass pro was good. Now, Tyron Smith, that's a tough spot to be weak, but even the sack that Rodgers took in the first half, like, it was a little bit of a coverage sack, and Rodgers had Williams open on the bottom side of the screen, so pass protection was decent in this game, so I would agree with that. My first stock up is new to the squad, Jalen Mills, safety.
I like that.
I was like trying to think of somebody different. And right away, and full disclaimer, guys, typically I rewatch the All-22 for these. I couldn't get to it with this game. So you're
not a real sicko.
Yeah, I couldn't do it this week.
I didn't either, for full transparency. But
so I'm just going off the top of my head from what I remember from broadcast, and I remember him flashing in the run game, and him being and the first half, the defense kind of came out physical and was pretty good against the run until the doors came off late. And I think Jalen Mills was a pretty big part of that. And to my knowledge, there weren't any big lapses in coverage that had his name attached to it or penalties or anything. So I'd expect him to start I think Tony Adams is not practicing, and Chuck Clark's on IR, so he's probably the next safety up. I think I like him better than Ashton Davis, who is injured as well at this point, but I like Jalen Mills. And that was it. His billing was a run, at least analytically, he was known as more of a run defending safety, and I think he brought that right away.
Yeah, 100%. I thought he stood out coming down to the line of scrimmage and making plays, because the Jets have struggled. I agree with this comment. UConn Jet, why not? Can I be on that staff in some capacity? I will take that. Give me some sort of role. I'll push.
We could miss the playoffs for cheaper.
Okay, there we go.
We could save him some money.
Yeah, for Jalen Mills though, I thought, looking at the Jets' issues in the run game, they there's always people around the ball, but it's never like the first guy to bring the rusher down. And I think he did a good job in this game of coming down to the line of scrimmage and making plays. And that's something they were severely lacking on the back end of this defense. So I've been pretty optimistic from what we saw. Obviously, a small sample against Buffalo, played significantly more against Pittsburgh, and I think it continues to trend that way, especially with Tony Adams banged up too.
Yep, love it. Who do you got next on your list?
All right, I'm going to stick on the offensive line here and go over to left guard and say John Simpson. Didn't another game where he doesn't allow a sack. No sacks on the season yet. 6 pressures allowed on the year. Maybe it's just me because when the Jets signed him, I thought that like he's okay, maybe at best, but probably should be an upgrade over Laken Tomlinson. And you might be able to make a case that he's been the Jets' best offensive lineman this year, which I don't think that was my expectation at all going into this year. I thought like for sure he'd be the number 5 guy. And if he was your number 5, that means you probably have a pretty good offensive line. But genuinely, I think, as I said, I think you can make a case that he's been their best offensive lineman this year and probably deserves a little bit more love. I was really hoping to see him and just the rest of this line really dominate in the run game, and we haven't seen that yet at any point. And you brought up the schematic issues in the run game, which is completely valid. But I've been really pleasantly surprised with his play all year. So I want to give him a shout out too.
Like it. Yeah, and I think the tight end blocking is a huge hindrance to our run game right now. That's kind of been an issue the whole year. But the offense, yeah, I think John Simpson has been I think he's got like what, 2 years, 12 million. So that's a really good value. Him and Morgan Moses are pretty good value on the offensive line. Smith not working out so much, but my next stock up is I thought Quinnen Williams had his best game of the season. So he's a stock up for me. I know it's Quinnen discourse is tough, right? Because I feel like there's been so many like brain dead, like Quinnen doesn't get sacks. Quinnen is overrated over the past 2 years when he's been dominant and like arguably the most valuable player on the team the last 2 years. And at least in my opinion, the most indispensable player of 2022 and the 2023 Jets. That our knee-jerk reaction is like whenever someone says he's underperforming, like we don't want to hear it because we just assume it's like it's nonsense. But I think he hadn't really been himself in the early part of the year, like him and Brees, just not quite right. Don't know what it is, but he really flashed in this game. When you started to see some of those like just holy shit like pass rush wins where he just right in the backfield, had 4 pressures, had a tackle for loss. So Quinnen definitely had like a vintage Quinnen game, and those don't always necessarily mean sacks, but it means disruption. And he was impacting the game, particularly in the first half before it all went to crap. But I thought between this one and the New England game, like those are the 2 best Quinnen games of the year.
Yeah, I really thought Quinnen Williams played very well in this game. And honestly, this defense in the first half, outside the first drive of the game where they let them kind of run right down the field and get points, I thought they were playing well, and I was optimistic. They were really, Russell Wilson couldn't do anything in that first half. And I genuinely thought before, I'm sure we'll get into this in stock down, but before the first Aaron Rodgers interception, I thought like, hey, maybe at halftime, they'll actually make the switch and go back to Justin Fields here because Russell Wilson doesn't really have any answers. And then the game completely flips after that. But I think you're right to bring up Quinnen Williams in this one. He definitely stood out to me as a positive. And like the Quinnen discourse, as you mentioned, is something that's such a hot button issue. But the reality is they need their stars to be game changing players. And I thought, in the first half, he was definitely much more noticeable, which in weeks gone by, he's been very quiet. So I would absolutely count that as a win.
Yeah, I think like none of the Jets stars are like playing terrible this year, but the cumulative impact of Garrett playing like Garrett, Brees, Quinnen, and Sauce playing like only 75% up to their full potential. Like the cumulative impact of that is pretty significant. And then your role players are like playing like a level below. Obviously, if that's all happening, probably a referendum on coaching. But yeah, definitely good to see some of the stars start to pop recently. Now it's your turn again, right, for your third stock up day?
So I have one more for me. If you have any more, I'm glad to talk through them. But I'm going to go Will McDonald here. another game with the sack, 5 pressure performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers, beat Broderick Jones, who, was claimed that, the Steelers stole him and New England gave one more FU, and beat him a couple times in that first half, one for a pressure, one for a sack, and just another really strong day. I know that Hassan Reddick feels like too little too late. Part of me still is excited about seeing that duo as an edge rushing duo, because I think there's a lot of potential there. But the emergence of Will McDonald this year, getting up to 8 sacks on the season through the first, 7 games, has been really, really impressive. And I'm excited to see how he goes the rest of the way. We were hoping for a year 2 leap out of Will McDonald. He had a rough first game against San Francisco. The whole really defense did, but has been by far their best pass rusher through the first 7 games of the year. And I thought was very strong against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, if you think about where this defensive line would be without him, we'd be really hurting if we didn't have Will McDonald. And he's what's the bummer about that game is if we were able to score on that last possession in half and really force Pittsburgh into a pass heavy team, the way McDonald was beating Broderick Jones, I'm like, he's going to have 3 sacks in this game. Like if Pittsburgh if Pittsburgh had to throw the ball, 23 times in the second half, but because we couldn't do that, it kind of changed the dynamic of the game, because the first 3 possessions, the first 3 third downs, Will McDonald blowing by Broderick Jones was the reason why we got off the field. It was a ball not batted down, and then two pressures that led to a throwaway. So yeah, he's second in the league in sacks, which I'm not predicting him to end the season with like the 20.5 sacks he's on pace for, but he's also 65 pressures, which I think is more sustainable, which is, that's what Reddick and Huff had last year. So he'll never be a great run defender, but dude, if you're getting, I think he's absolutely shown the tools to be a perennial double-digit sack, 60-plus pressure player, and you'll take that in the first round, especially since last year's draft class was significantly weaker than the one that followed it. So he was really good. I think I had one more stock up. I had Breece Hall. Did you say Breece Hall?
No, I didn't say Breece Hall, but yeah, I definitely thought he stood out in this game. Obviously, the large reception numbers, and he was really good there. But even on the rushing touchdown, I know his rushing numbers don't look fantastic, but I thought he showed really good patience on that run, waiting for the blockers to set up, and that was a huge play for them and a team that struggles in the red zone. So I like your Breece Hall answer here.
Yeah, and you can start to see with like the Breece that I still think he's like maybe 90% back. I don't know if he was hurt in the beginning of the year or whatever, but he clearly wasn't right. And now you're starting to see the last 2 weeks him make something out of nothing, because he single-handedly won games for us last year, like that, like the Patriots game, the Giants game, and he was doing that in this game. The run blocking was still egregious, but he had 102 yards of just yak in this game, and he had 100 receiving yards. So he was catching the ball behind the line of scrimmage and getting 100. He gave Aaron Rodgers 100 free passing yards in this game, just on checkdowns. And there was more to be had. Like Pittsburgh was just going in that soft zone, dropping those linebackers like really deep to cut off that intermediate middle. And that Breece Hall was just sitting underneath open all day. So Aaron Rodgers is going to be a stock down for that reason. But Breece was really good in this game, and I think maybe if they still can't figure out how to run the ball, like, I don't know, maybe Breece needs 10 targets a game. Like maybe he needs eight catches a game, because they need the ball in his hands.
Yeah, that's it's kind of an extension of the run game when you're checking it down to your running back like that. So I agree. Also, with Devontae Adams brought in and you have Garrett Wilson still, they're going to take a lot of attention away. And like even on the Rodgers interception, he had Breece for a check down, and he mentioned like after the game, it was either after the game or today or yesterday, whatever. But moral of the story, he was kind of saying, yeah, I could have just checked down to Breece and picked up the first down there on 2nd and 4. Do that more often. Like he's very dynamic. He turns those 3 yards and turn around to catch the ball. That turns into a 15-yard play seemingly just about every time. So I'm totally down with that. If you're struggling to get the ball going on the ground, that's, like I said, an extension of the run game.
Like it. All right, Matt. So it's time to be negative. Who's your stock down?
Yeah, I have a few here as well. I want to start, though, with Tyron Smith. who I thought had a really rough game again. And if you just look at his season numbers, up to 6 penalties and 5 sacks allowed in 7 games, I did not think that it was possible to not upgrade that position, just moving off of Mekhi Becton and how poor he was last year. But Smith, obviously the big name, had a great year last year, comes here and it just looks like a shell of himself. He looks,
Right.
people talk about Aaron Rodgers looking like a shell of himself, and I'm not saying that's unfair, but I think the more stark difference is Tyron Smith with how he's
Yeah.
looked this year versus what he looked like even last year. I did not expect him to play a full season when they signed him. That's why I wanted them to have a strong contingency plan on the offensive line, but he just looks like not playable, even if he's healthy, even we'll say in quotes right now.
Yeah, Smith is that's especially because like he got washed just over the summer. I don't know if he's healthy, whatever the case may be. Now with Smith, he there are still reps where it's not like Dwayne Brown last year where every single rep he's getting beat like a drum. It's not like Billy Turner. Like there are
Mhm.
still reps where it's like, okay, he looks like serviceable, whatever. But there are certain reps where he just does the Laken Tomlinson glitch where he just can't get to his spot and he's below and he's like the defender is untouched. So the pressures he gives up are so immediate that it's like it's just like a dead play. You know, when he's doing that, and Rodgers is taking big hits that way because you're letting guys blow by you. They have full momentum into the quarterback, and I think his anchor is still there. You know, I don't think it's a coincidence that he had his best game against Nick Bosa, who is a power rusher, and the only sack he gave up against San Fran was to Floyd, who is a
Yeah.
more speed bendy guy, and those are the guys that are beating him. Ironically, I think like T.J. Watt will get everybody, but like high that's why Highsmith was a tougher matchup for him. So and then he had that viral one. I don't know if you saw the clip that was going around of him just falling on the run blocking rep.
Yep.
That went to Braylon Allen. So and there's been a couple of those where he just turf monsters get him and he goes down. So he's just I don't know, man. It might be Olu season. Maybe he needs to go on IR for 4 weeks and patch it up. But it just seems like I get it if you only had Max Mitchell behind him. It's like he's got to strap on the knee pads and go. But if you took a top 12 pick, I mean, at what point it's like, what are we doing here, man? You know?
Yeah, 1000%. It's you have someone who you took, 11th overall that they really liked, and all of us thought was a good player and a good pass protector coming out of the draft. I know he didn't look great on the right side, filling in for Morgan Moses, but I don't think that's stopping me from getting him left tackle reps at some point this year. And if it continues to trend this way, like I just don't know if Smith is playable. Like you said, let him rest for a few games and see if he can get right that way. But he's a non-factor.
Absolutely. So my stock down is Aaron Rodgers. I think is not a good game from Aaron, and I think that the pass pro wasn't like the pass pro was okay outside of a few bad reps from Smith. No, the team made a concerted effort to keep TJ Watt from wrecking the game. He just got Devontae Adams here, who played most of the game. You know, Garrett Wilson egregious drop, but I think that can be mitigated by Brees Hall getting you 100 freaking yak yards, and that was the only drop on the night. And at the end of the day, like, dude, you put up 15 points, and this is not a rant session on Aaron Rodgers, but I think that we're starting to move the goalposts and we're losing sight of like what the expectation was for Aaron. And maybe those expectations were unreasonable for a 41-year-old coming off of an Achilles. Like it's not his fault that he's old and clearly injured. Like he's going to be on the injury report the rest of the season. He's got lingering stuff in his lower body. You can see he's kind of skittish and gun shy. He's toughing through it. So it is what it is. Like he's doing the best he can, but I I still haven't seen a game that we've won that I feel like we couldn't have won with Tyrod Taylor. Like I think we're 2-5 with Tyrod Taylor. So until I see a game where it's like, damn, if we didn't have that dude, we'd be kind of screwed. And there was just some spotty ball placement. Not all his fault, but I think he's got a good amount of help, man. Like he's got more help than any quarterback we've had in a long time in terms of the weapons and the offensive line not being terrible and Brees Hall getting you free yards and just tough to come away with no points from that interception, and that interception was what changed the game. So he's a stock down for me.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers also made my list, and like I get it, he's playing banged up right now, but I thought the game completely changed after that first interception where you're up by 9 points and you're driving with 2 minutes left in the first half and you have a chance to go down. And, worst case scenario, you stay up by nine, or I thought at least worst case scenario, you stay up by 9 points, either attack on a field goal, go up 12, or God forbid, score a touchdown and go up by 16. And then it really feels like you're putting this game away. Instead, interception. And not only was it just them, the Steelers getting possession, going down and getting points to make it a 2-point game, but that play, it felt like he and the rest of the team, like their energy just was completely gone from that. And they were outscored 31-0 after that play happened in essentially 32 minutes, which is just shocking. And plus, like he's the leader too. He's a captain of this team. And he was brought in here to be kind of like a stabilizing force for, a team that has a lot of young talent, but now has supplemented that with a lot of veterans and was not able to do that. It unraveled after that one mistake. And right. I know the second interception isn't on him, but no, it wasn't a good enough performance for me.
Yeah. And I think that they were flat at halftime. Like, I'm not going to kill him for saying that because he stated the issue. He took accountability for the issue. And he said, we got to fix it. And that starts with him. He said he's, saying all the right things. I think his tune has kind of changed this week where he's like, all right, there's only so many guys I can be mad at. Like the accountability for him has definitely stepped up media wise. But that too was like, oh, we're flat at halftime. And it's like, ooh, how is that possible? Like you're playing for your season, dude. What's going on? Who's your next stock down? You had Tyron Smith, I had Rodgers, so back to you.
Yeah, so I'll go Garrett Wilson next. And I know that like the stat numbers have been there the last 2 weeks, but in this game in particular, you can't have a ball go off your chest and deflect up and essentially be a pick six. I mean, it was returned to the 1 yard line and they punched it right in after that. But that even like you could have made a case that he catches that ball and makes a play and like gets huge yardage on it. And like, I don't know if it was he was somehow screened by the defensive back who was in front of him and he had the hand up. And obviously the pass went like right over the fingertips of the defender. It was a beautiful ball, but if it hits you in the chest, you have to catch it. And we would all crush Allen Lazard if he was the one who had a ball pop off his chest and go the other way. I think, there might be a revolt outside of One Jets drive if it was him, but we have to do the same thing for Garrett Wilson and hold Garrett Wilson to the standard. I know that a lot of fans have maybe, I don't know if soured on him is the right word, but they're very down on Garrett Wilson. I'm not there yet, but at the same time, you have to hold the guy accountable, and that's a play he absolutely has to make. Like, I know Garrett Wilson cares. I think he has a good head on his shoulders. I think he's a very good player and a good dude, someone I want on my team, but that's just an inexcusable mistake that really cost them.
Yeah, I would agree. And we see your guys' super chats. Appreciate it. I'll get to those after our stock up, stock down. But Stanley, that did jump out to me where like Devontae Adams was like a Super Saiyan chasing down the pick, and it's like he does. I don't know. It was just like the new guy is the guy who's hustling there. So that did stand out to me too, Stanley, for sure. Yeah, tough one from Garrett. Like it's only one drop, but that was so, like the two plays of the game were the pick from Rodgers, the two picks from Rodgers. One is Rodgers' fault and one is Garrett Wilson's fault. Where it's like he could have had and that was a whole shot to where if Garrett catches that, like that safety, it's a weird kind of angle. Like Garrett's kind of shifty. I don't know. It could be a touchdown. Like if that next guy misses, and if not, it's at least the ball up near the 50. And instead, it's basically like you said, a pick six the other way. Completely demoralizing, tough. And he also had 2 false starts, which has been a consistent theme for him. It's like he's like twerking around at the line of scrimmage. It's like, dude, just freaking just stop, just to set before the ball snaps. Like you're supposed to be a wide receiver 1, which he has the talent to be. He does have the talent to be. I'm not completely out on Garrett Wilson's ceiling. He's still the kind of player you build around. But dude, you gotta be locked in and be able to line up. So that's fair. Stock down to me is the special teams in general. Like Gibson, it it's not, you don't want to be nitpicking, Isaiah Davis and Xavier Gibson when your team has so many issues, but to me it is a microcosm of this team not having the details buttoned up. Like, how is it that Isaiah Davis, respectfully to him, when he first caught the ball and started running it out, I was like, wait, where's the Madden button, like, to go faster? What is happening?
Yeah.
Why is that's our kick returner? We have 53 guys on the roster, and that's one of our kick returners. I'm like, and why is he allowed to bring it out? If he's back there to be like the second guy to lead block, he cannot bring the ball out of the end zone. He has no shot to advance it past the 20. And the one time he got turf monstered to the 17. So I'm like, and now teams have figured out they kick it to him, and now he can't. Now he gets to the 18 on average. Okay, now you're sacrificing 7 yards per drive just on a simple small decision. Like, that's, you can't live ways like this. And Gibson had his seventh fumble, as his sixth and seventh fumble as a returner, and neither one of them mattered. They both muffed in out of bounds. But I'm like, Gibson has 2 explosive returns in his career and 7 fumbles. Like, how is that a risk reward ratio that we're living with, especially when they had, Malachi Corley rated as a better prospect than Randy Moss or whatever, and he can't even get active over Isaiah Davis and Gibson. So that stuff is frustrating. And obviously I think, didn't they block a kick that got taken away with a penalty, and then they blocked another one?
Yes, correct. Yeah, they blocked they blocked an extra point, right? And then it bailed them out. They went for 2. They got the 2, and then later on, Greg sets up a field goal and he gets blocked. So they really did block 2.
And I'm sure they blocked it a similar way. Like, they couldn't adjust to the second time they blocked it. So, and that's tough because Brant Boyer has been a really good special teams coach. So I'm like, man, we're even losing that. So definitely stock down for the special teams. I think even Morstead has kind of lost that magic touch on pinning teams deep that he had last year. So overall, stock down for the special teams unit.
Yeah, I'm with you. I had 3. Mine were Smith, Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. So I don't know if you had any more on your list that you wanted to get into or go into the chat. But yeah, it was definitely a tough week for special teams, which, as you pointed out, was supposed to be a strength of this team and is clearly not.
Yeah, I don't have any more. I mean, the secondary, like, it was literally 5 backups at one point. So how much can you kill them for that? But I think that's pretty much where I'm at with my stock up, stock down. Thank you, Yukon Jet. I'd be fun just to see, like, how just give Jets Twitter one draft just to see how it goes. Give us one draft,
It can't go worse.
Yeah, what's the worst that happens? Malachi Corley, no matter what. They would show you my text message to Matt O'Leary that says Malachi Corley, no matter what.
I don't think the good. I was gonna say the good news is I don't think we're gonna have any text leak about a guy who has 2 snaps through 7 games.
No, it's funny. Oh man, and I don't even, when I say that, I'm not trying to clown Malachi Corley. I don't even know if he's good. Like, I think the prospect, there was he was a highly rated prospect. Like, Daniel Jeremiah said he was a top 50 player. It's just it's just very Jetsy how it's gone from the hype to not playing.
I'm not convinced the Jets know how to use him. No. Like, me personally, I think the reason why he's not getting on the field is because of his route running, which, like, if you watched any Malachi Corley, like, that's not going to be his strength. His strength is get with the ball in his hands and what he does in the yards after the catch department. So I don't know why they can't just go, let's give him the ball in an end around. Let's give him the ball in the backfield, throw him a screen, something to, especially if your offense is struggling the way that it is and you were trying to trade up for the guy as early as pick 45, you would think they'd have some sort of package ready for him, but it doesn't seem like that's the case.
Yeah, I think it definitely is less frustrating now that you have Devontae Adams, because there's a lot of good veterans ahead of him now. But it's tough to imagine that a team like the San Francisco 49ers wouldn't be utilizing him in some capacity. Right. Or like if he went to Sean McVay and you're like, oh, he can't run all the routes. It's like, his name wasn't the route running king. His name was the Yak King. If he was the Yak King and he ran precise routes, he would be a first round pick. Like, obviously he's going to have some deficiencies. So it's a high enough pick to think it's reasonable that you get some sort of role out of him, but we'll see what happens. Because then it begs the question, like, okay, if you have all these receivers and you're planning for trading for Adams, that's still a premium asset that you could go, that could, like, a defensive tackle there would be starting right now, or a safety would be starting right now. So it kind of goes to just the overall resource allocation, maybe not being ideal, but we'll see. Wilfredo says, super chat, thanks, man. This Jets team lacks chemistry and leadership. This is a symptom of being coached by Saleh. I'd have this team rolling with my Madden expertise. So what do you make of not to make molehills out of every like corner of Jets Twitter intercourse, but I have seen some like, well, hey, the defense has fallen off since Salah, or like the locker room is more flat since Salah left.
I don't know. I don't really have much love lost for them moving on from Salah, who, like, if things were continuing to trend this way and like they had a losing record or whatever this year, he was gone anyway. So if they did it
Right.
15 games early, or obviously that's an exaggeration, like I don't really care that much. They have there's too many talented players on this roster for them to just not be able to figure out going from Robert Salah to Jeff Ulbrich. Like I don't think that's a good enough reason.
Yeah, I think that I I think it's similar to the quarterback situation last year where it's like we or even offensive tackle when they started shifting around. Like we don't have a starting caliber player. Like we don't have a head coach on our coaching staff. Right? We didn't with Robert Sala. Now, to the argument that maybe you should have just made the Downing switch and kept Sala, maybe I don't think that's completely unreasonable, but I think it's a little frustrating when we do the thing of like, oh well, you blame this guy, but it's like, but was that guy good at their job? Like, or they weren't the whole problem. Like, who's ever the whole problem? Was Laken Tomlinson the whole problem? No, but he sucked. Like, was Dalvin Cook the whole problem? No, but he sucked. They had to go. They had to be replaced. Um, but I think okay, that's fair. If you wanted to say keep Salah and make the offensive change, that's fine. But I will push back on the oh they're flat now without Salah because this is still a culture that he built. It doesn't change in 2 weeks. Like this is a culture that he was the leader of for 3 years. If you have a company that's running like clockwork for 3 years and the CEO resigns, that company doesn't go to crap in 10 days. Like let's be a little bit realistic about that part of it.
And also, too, it's not like there weren't games under Robert Sala where they came out flat in
Yeah.
kind of must-win situations. I
Yes.
mean, last year against the Dolphins, when they lose 30-0 in Miami, when they were still kind of technically alive and hoping
Right.
that Rodgers would come back, and then in Seattle the year prior when you were still kind of alive, or like I don't know, pick any of the 6 games they
Every
lost at the
year,
end of the year.
every
Yeah,
year of the past 3 years where they've been up for mathematical elimination, they've lost by 17 or more points.
right. Like it's exactly that's all you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think this game was like it's so strange because we do have a lot of leaders on the team where it's like how could a team that has Aaron Rodgers, CJ Mosley, DJ Reed, uh, how can a team that has all these kind of guys just I don't know, it just felt so lifeless. Like I felt so hopeless, like you could feel the energy. That's frustrating too on the players. I don't know, man. Chris says it's far fetched, but how do you feel about Jordan Travis starting next year? He was really good in college prior to injury. Could have been a top QB in the draft. What do you think, Matt?
I hope that Jordan Travis can develop into being the starter for this team. That'd be a great story if like they took all these swings in the top three and it didn't work, and then you find someone in what the fifth or sixth round that he ends up being your answer. I don't want to go into next year with him as like the planned starter. That kind of feels like a worst case scenario for me, but I hope that he shows growth from this year to next year. We haven't even seen him on the field yet, so it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, I think Travis does have some traits where I think he'll have some sort of role in the NFL. Now, I think we also have to be honest that if he has Tyrod Taylor's career, that would be a phenomenal return on investment for a late fifth round pick. Like that would be awesome. If he is a bridge quarterback to like high end backup, retires at 50 million in the bank, like that is an awesome outcome for Jordan Travis. And I do think that he might have gone a round and a half higher if not for the injury. He still wouldn't have been one of the top 6 quarterbacks like in the draft class. I think we have to keep realistic about that. Probably still wouldn't even been ahead of Spencer Rattler as a prospect. But he does have a little it factor about him when you watched him at Florida State. Obviously a little undersized, but plus mobility, and we'll see. Now I agree with you. I think that it's so tough, man. Like you don't want to think this already, but I think it's reasonable that the Jets could be in the market for drafting a quarterback in the first round next year, which I know the pain and the thoughts that come with that. But if we look at every single contending team in our conference, they all have a quarterback that they drafted in the first round. And I don't think that drafting a quarterback in the first round is definitely means Jordan Travis is done here. I
Yeah.
think we've seen like RG3 and Kirk Cousins. We've seen Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, where due to opportunity, the later draft round pick quarterback got to go. So I think multiple, like you said, you can't put all your eggs in the Jordan Travis basket, but he should be in the fold. He should definitely be in the fold. Why not? That's why they drafted him, right?
Yeah, I think he absolutely will be in this team's quarterback room next year. And, maybe if it's Rodgers isn't here and it's Tyrod Taylor, another rookie quarterback, and Jordan Travis kind of competing out for it, like I could maybe sell myself on that. I just don't want it to be kind of like the spot where oh my God, who was it? Atlanta last year, where they're like, yeah, we're going to roll with Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke. And like that clearly blew up in their face. Like I just don't want to be in a spot where you don't have another lane you can go down.
Yeah, definitely. And that wouldn't be necessarily fair to Jordan Travis either, because I don't know to what extent he's really practicing, like how he's not getting first or second team reps, right? It's more of a red shirt kind of year. Tyrap says this team is deflating. Woody irks me so much. So now this week this past 2 or 3 weeks has been the Woody Johnson debate, which, Matt, how many games did you predict the Jets to win at the beginning of the year?
11.
Did you know Woody Johnson was the owner then?
Yes.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I get it. I get it. He's objectively not a good owner, but what do you now? The blame pie is being divvied up. I see some people think we'll never have a chance to be a competent franchise if Woody's the owner, which would be depressing because I think he's going to be the owner until he passes away, and then his kids are going to be the owners. So I don't know, man. Where do we go from? What do we do with that?
Yeah, I'm not a Woody guy. I think his issue is being like too hands-on and too involved. And I know like even some of the more recent moves that were made were moves that I agreed with in, trying to get the spark and moving on from Salah and, trading for Devontae Adams. Like good, like he ponied up the money to do it, to pay Adams and to pay a coach, the rest of this year to not coach this team. But I just worry about an owner who kind of oversteps the line, right, and is getting involved in the player operations or the football operations side of things. That usually doesn't end well. I can't really off the top of my head think of too many examples where that's been a positive for me. I think it's the best situation is when an owner has the money and is willing to spend as much as humanly possible, but hires someone who is a football guy or whatever sport it is to run the show and give full control over to them. But when your GM is arguably not very good or your head coach isn't good and you have to step in and make these decisions, like I don't know, there's some gray area there, but you won't really ever catch me defending Woody Johnson. I think he does a lot of things that bother a lot of people. So yeah, it's not all Woody. We saw him in the early 2000s have success with this Jets team, but I think a lot of that was because of the established culture and dynamic that the team had under Bill Parcells that carried over through the 2000s.
Yeah, I think that the problem I have with Woody is it's like once you have to start overstepping your GM, then just get a new GM, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not a football guy. So what you do, you may be a blind squirrel and press a couple of good buttons. Maybe Solidifier was a good button. Who knows? Maybe getting, I think the urgency of getting Adams and Reddick here was a little bit Woody driven, or at least he seemed to lap up the credit for it with the media. But yeah, they have to have a football person who Woody just lets do all the stuff. Because if you remember the chain of command that they promised us was GM reports to owner, coach to GM, players to coach. And I did a video this morning that every single line that you could draw all through that has been trifled through completely, from Woody overstepping Douglas to fire Saleh, Woody overstepping Douglas and Saleh to fire Mike LaFleur. Then the GM and owner kind of force Hackett upon Saleh to get Rodgers. So they fire his coordinator without his permission, really. They assign him his new coordinator. So you're not letting your coach build his staff. You're not letting your GM decide who the head coach is. And now Aaron Rodgers is kind of your assistant GM. And then do you remember when the players got together behind closed doors at Robert Saleh and they came out and announced that Mike White was a starter because like CJ Mosley and company grabbed him around the neck and were like, if you make us play with Zach Wilson for 5 more minutes, we're all going to retire. So it's like now the players are deciding who the starting quarterback is. So it's like, what the F is going on, man? Like, now it's hard to evaluate how those people are in their jobs because you're not letting them do their jobs. So
Exactly.
like maybe they all would have been over, maybe like the Salah and Douglas have all made like individual mistakes on their own, but you just have to you have to let a football person do all the football stuff and give them full trust because now like other GM prospects they see this and it's going to make them not want to work for you.
Yeah, like who? Like obviously, I'm not saying this in a they have to keep Joe Douglas now way, but assuming they move on from Joe Douglas, what GM or coaching prospect is going to want to come here and sign up for this?
No, it's not a desirable destination, especially like with. I mean, you're going to be especially if you're a first time head coach, and now you're gonna if like maybe Aaron Rodgers isn't back, but if he is, now you're gonna have like a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers who's kind of your boss. Like you're gonna be the coach for that. It's not gonna be a desirable destination. And Woody is obviously a big part of that. Now I think he does step in when other mistakes are being made, but it's like, dude, at that point, then pick new football people. And let them rebuild it from there because you coming in and meddling around is probably never going to be good in the long run. It's not a sustainable solution for him to be the GM. Joe says Rodgers had the ball to win the game 3 times. What do you say to that, Matt?
Not wrong, and they came up 0 for 3. Unfortunately, I'm not. I don't put full blame on Aaron Rodgers for the reason why they're 2-5, but he's definitely part of the reason. And you mentioned Tyrod; they probably are 2-5 with Tyrod, but you bring in Rodgers and make that aggressive trade to win you tight games like that. And for whatever reason, unfortunately, they are 0 for 3 in those spots, which is not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think back to the 3 because obviously, like, it's not all on Rodgers, but I will say even the play in London against the Vikings, where whenever Michael Williams runs the wrong route, like 2 plays before that, Garrett Wilson hits like a little slant and go double move, and is wide open for a
Yep.
game-winning touchdown, and Rodgers throws it 7 yards out of bounds, and that was after he already threw 2 picks. So yeah, that's when you have to hit that throw. You got to hit that throw, and then the interception never comes into play. The Denver game, you got him in field goal range. They missed the kick. That's kind of I don't know if I put that one too much on Rodgers. And then the Buffalo one, yeah, that's another Mike. That's another Mike Williams one. I'm trying to think back if there were other mistakes on that drive, but it's a bummer, especially that it's happening between veterans like Alan Lazard dropping the ball or Mike Williams not being in the right spot with Aaron Rodgers, because that's typically why he doesn't like young receivers allegedly. So it's I don't know. We could split up the blame on those individual drives, but I think we would all agree that Rodgers he hasn't played like a quarterback that has justified the resources and like bidding against yourself for months in darkness retreat and tracking flights and Joe Douglas, 3 sheets to the wind at Boomer Esiason's fundraiser saying he's gonna be here and like it hasn't justified all of that, not by any means.
No, no, you're right.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, it's like it's funny now because now it's like people are attacking other fans who just like have season tickets. Like if you go to the game, like you're part of the problem. That's the worst part
That's
when the Jets
tough.
start
Yeah.
losing because then the fans start going at each other. It's like, it's like Joe from Section 308 is the reason why the Jets don't have a running game and their defensive line is decimated.
Yeah, I don't have any issue or hold any gripe against a fan who doesn't want to give up their season tickets. Obviously, they've been in most cases, they've been in the family forever. A lot of great family memories there. Like, I don't know. I personally don't ever see myself getting season tickets, so I can't relate to that. But like at the same time, this is something that they've done, 8, 9 times a year for years. They go to every game, and I don't know. I'm not going to hold that against them.
Yeah, I'm not interested in Jeff fan on Jeff fan crime. It is what it is. All right, Matt. So we got the Patriots coming up. Are you? Is there any Jet Kool-Aid optimism left in you? That did this? Do you have? Are you willing to give this team one more shot? Because if they lose to the Patriots, I think even the 20% of people that are hanging on are going to have to jump off the cliff.
Yeah, but I don't honestly, I would not put it past this team to lose this game, just with how they've played over the last four. And with I don't know, I think it's gonna be a lot tougher with Drake May than Jacoby Brissett. I think May makes him a little bit more feisty. Now they're having their own issues. Like Gerard Mayo called the team soft, and there's supposedly like the locker room's not in a great spot either. So maybe like those two things cancel out and it restores to the norm. But even if the Jets go out there and win like 30-10, that's not enough to get me back on board.
No. And that kind of leads into what Rob is saying. No outcome in this game will get me fully back on board. Obviously, a win would be awesome. A blowout would be better. It wouldn't take much for me though. If they beat the Patriots and upset Houston, I'm back. I'm back. You're 4-5.
Yeah.
I'm back at least. We're alive, but we're a long way from there. Yeah. It's yeah. May is scrappy. He looks pretty good. It'd be ironic. Like this is the way we would sweep the Patriots, though, right? You'd sweep the Patriots and to claw to 3-5. They're going to be favored in this game. I really don't know what to expect with this team anymore. I think any possible outcome could happen. I think the most likely outcome is maybe a 3 to 6 point Jets win would probably be my prediction. But they could lose a close game. They could blow the Patriots out again. And honestly, Matt, like they could completely fall apart and lose by 2 touchdowns on the road to this. Like I really could. I wouldn't put it past them at this point. They just gave up 31 unanswered points in a row to Pittsburgh, who's not exactly the 2007 Patriots. So I have no idea what to expect. But we will be watching. We'll be hoping for the best. And what do you got coming up on the channel?
Yeah, so I'll do my preview for this game tomorrow. I haven't decided if I'm picking a Jets win or loss, which is just so depressing that that's where we're at right now. But got that going on, and then just reacting to any news that comes out before this game on Sunday.
Love it, man. We will see you guys next week. Hopefully,
Please
the
win.
Jets will be so the wheels don't fall off, man. But you guys, the best. If you're on my channel, go check out Matt. Hit the thumbs up on your way out. And we will talk Jets football soon. Go Jets.